It is another wonderful time on television. You're welcome to our program, Africa Discourse on Independent Television. My name is Evan Sunokoge, and today on this show, we are going to be looking at issues around the continent of Africa, the way we've always done on this show. 55 countries on the continent of Africa. And of course, Africa, the second largest continent in terms of population mass on the surface of the earth. And for quite some time now, for maybe 3-4 decades, it's been stories of crisis here and there, political crisis, you may want to say. And the big question is, what is really responsible for this crisis? If you take a toll, right from the northern parts of Africa to the southern hemisphere, from the west to the eastern hemisphere of the continent, is one crisis or the other. Either ethnic militia or crisis that has to do with armed banditry, political crisis here and there. In Senegal, we understand that, opposition, political parties are also gearing up to ensure that they want to take over the government in Senegal. Then, of course, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, is a kind of a spillover of what has been, of what happened in Rwanda. Then you also come to some countries in the Central African Republic, is one issue or the other. Then you go to Sudan, is also the story. You go to Kenya, is also the story. And even if you come back home in Nigeria here, it's also the story. But only the fact that we may not be having it the way it is in other countries of Africa. Now, what is really responsible for this political crisis that we have on the continent of Africa, in these countries, in the African continent? Well, today to look at this big question, we are so privileged to have two eminent gentlemen here, and join me to welcome Pastor Benson Ogiriahe. Sir, you're welcome to this program, African Discourse.
Good afternoon.
All right, so Pastor Benson Ogiriahe is going to be giving us from the religious point of view now, whether it has always been that case right from time immemorial, or it's just a recent fallout of recent developments on the continent of Africa, you may want to say. And also, we are so privileged to have a very renowned serial author, a kind of conflict resolution expert, you may want to say, when it comes to conflict issues internationally and locally. He's always there to suggest one thing or the other that can be done so that issues of conflict can be brought to rest. Please join me to welcome Nwita Igbotako. Sir, welcome to the show, African Discourse.
Good afternoon, viewers. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
Okay. Now, perhaps we may just start with you because you are very in tune with the issues here now. When we talk about crisis, in politics, political crisis in Africa. So from your own point of view, what would you want to say is the major factor that is responsible for some of the political crises in Africa?
Well, it's very clear that while we have incidences of, crisis in Africa, is that the SYZ is misgovernance. Misgovernance. Look at the issue broadly, misgovernance. When we talk about misgovernance, we talk of political insincerity by the African leaders. African leaders are not sincere with power. African leaders, they will bamboozle the electorate during the electoral period. They tell all sorts of stories, and when they get to power, they do the reverse. They don't do what they promise the electorate. And when they come to power, a lot of things come to play in African politics. We have tribal politics, we have ethnic politics, we have religious politics, so to say. They are religious politics, because some of these countries, where they have a majority, ethnic majority, and for instance, if a particular, ethnic group is majority, for instance, and they want to impose their will on the rest people, that's what I call religious, politics. It's in Nigeria, it's in Sudan. As we talk, cartoon is burning. You mentioned in your introductory this thing. Yeah. The heart of cartoon is dropping blood, tears, sorrow. The government in power and the rebels, they are fighting to hell. And at the end of the day, are they fighting on behalf of the people? No. They are fighting for their parochial, personal interests, not the interest of the downtrodden people in Africa. So we have ethnic crisis, we have ethnic factors, we have religious factors, we have tribal factors. Then, majority of in this country, the people are being impoverished. Poverty is an issue. Poverty is an issue. Majority of African leaders, they come to power, they have no agenda for their people. It's so sad. No agenda, nothing for the people. They just come to power, they come to satisfy themselves, satisfy their cronies, satisfy their girlfriends and boyfriends. When I say boyfriends, some of them are into gay and things like that. This is a fact of the matter. So in Africa, we have spiraling conflict, protracted conflict caused by Africans, by themselves. I want to say most of African leaders are evil spirits. Evil spirits.
You cannot say that now.
Yeah, it's my opinion. Most of them are evil spirits because when you have leaders who have been elected, so to say, elected into office, and you get there, you're not doing something else. You don't care about the generality of the people. You are not doing your own agenda. You have no component of development. If there's any component at all, the component is to satisfy you, yourself and family, and your cronies. That is sad reality. You see, when I was doing one of my theses in a conflict resolution, that's my area, I said, why violent conflict in Africa? One of the things we say, one of my resolutions I said in my thesis, African leaders, they are not interested how to curb poverty. If there is poverty alienation program, fantastic poverty alienation program that will take care of the populace in Africa, I'm sure the conflict will come down.
Okay.
So what we see is maladministration of the highest level, and people don't take into reckoning, the people. They manipulate ethnic, tribal, religion factors to prolong their stay in power, to the detriment of the African people.
Okay. Now, Pastor Benson Ogira here, we are looking at a situation that cuts across, bad governance, just as what Nwita Ibutako tried to explain as one of the reasons why you have political crisis on the continent of Africa. Bad governance, that's one narrative. And of course, we also have some other narratives that try to posit the reasons as a result of external forces. You have maybe some other nations of the world. Take, for example, Britain, the Germans, the United States of America, colonial masters, so you want to say, because of their continuous interest on the continent of Africa. For resource control. They want to tap into the natural resources that we have here. That these forces may be also responsible to fuel some of the crises, some of the political crises that we have in this continent. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Okay, well, I want to start from a point. You discover that as a pastor, the Bible says the heart of man is desperately wicked. He said, who can know it? Every manifestation of man's action starts from the heart.
Start from the heart.
That is why you discover that God was trying to counsel man, that man should make sure that they guide the heart diligently. He used the word, guide the heart diligently, because he said, out of it are the issues of life. So you find out that anytime you are dealing with a wicked heart in an authority, just as the Bible says that when the wicked is in authority, it says people mourn. But when the righteous man is in authority, it says people rejoice. So every crisis you are seeing today, especially in Africa, it starts from the wickedness of the heart of men. In a place where you discover that people, for instance, are saying that we prefer so and so person, and another person is imposing himself, and other people who also have a kind of interest that feel that, oh, through this person we can have our interest achieved. They are also trying to force the person and say, though these people are actually going after so and so person, but let's force you there. The reason they are doing that is not actually that they love the person or they love the country, but you find out that the people are much more interested in the benefit that they are going to get from them.
Now, this explanation now, do you think it cuts across, countries where we have political crisis in Africa?
Yes, majority of them. I was just looking at some things today, trying to look at, compare Africa to the Western world. I found out that, first of all, sir, believe me, man is the same anywhere. But the difference between African and the Western world is that they put laws in place. And they make sure that those laws that they put in place, they also drive it and monitor it. But look at Africans. The law will be there. But you just found out that they will tell you that though the law is there, but it's nothing. If a man who's supposed to honor the law, a man who's supposed to uphold the law, a man who's supposed to say, this is our guide, let's follow it to build a good country, is pushing it aside because of personal interest. So you find out that people will just be going like that. For instance, I use this as an example. Do you know that if you are driving and you discover that the lights stop you and you stop, sometimes you see some other drivers coming. They know that it's on red, that you are supposed to stop. They start telling you, insulting you, why are you stopping? No, can't you move? Can't you move? What kind of driver are you? So that is actually an expression of the attitude of men. So until we rise up to say, let's follow the law that's supposed to be a guide to everybody, we can't move ahead.
Okay. All right, so Nowita Butako. Now, looking at the issue one more time, it is perhaps only in Africa that you kind of find it very difficult to really understand the reason for some of the political crises that we have. Now, we have explained bad governance, but you and I also know that there are explanations too that builds around maybe religious movements, jihadist movement that we've seen recently. We have the Boko Haram in some parts of West Africa countries, even spilling into Nigeria. Now, these guys, as it were, they are really not there to succeed the government. They are just trying to perpetuate, an ideology that they believe in, an ideology that should pervade the society. And by so doing, they also amount to some of the political crises that we try to talk about here. So looking at all this, even as we try to find solutions to some of these political crises this afternoon, don't you think it's almost a kind of a difficult situation in Africa for us to really understand what is really responsible for all this crisis?
Well, look at the thing, it's not a difficult thing because, as I said earlier, I use one term, and the term look a bit funny. I said most African leaders, they are evil spirits. And our pastor here has collaborated.
Yeah, but we also need to, it is not only in Africa that we have political crisis.
But their laws work. That's what the pastor just said.
Yes.
United States, for instance, upon the evil, all the misadventure, all the bravado that ex-president Donald Trump did in America is being held accountable. The man is not leading down. He has been indicted in the history of America over 200 years. He's the first ex-president to have been indicted, and the man is not taken, he will go to jail. Law works there. Law don't work here. Because those who made the law, they mess up the law. They mess up the law. They put their cronies into the judiciary. They will turn the books upside down, and they say people should go to hell. I'm sorry to use that word. That is the implication. When the rules are there, as Pastor said, you don't follow the rule. The rule written by you, usually by the same gang of people who know where they meet. They are cabals. They are political cartels, not only in Nigeria, all over the world, in fact in Africa. In every country, they have their cartels, they have their people. You talk about Boko Haram. Why is Boko Haram still having a leeway in our country? Because some of our leaders, they sponsored them.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Allegedly. Because we have cases of presidential candidates, vice presidential candidates that are being alleged to be sponsors of Boko Haram. And these guys, they have not come to deny it. That is a fact of the matter. For instance, in Nigeria, during the last presidential election, one of the presidential candidates, vice presidential candidate, was accused of being a sponsor of Boko Haram. The man has not come one day to tell Nigeria and say, no, he's not there.
Because it's an accusation, so accusation is neither right nor wrong.
With facts and some figures, it did not die down. People came up with facts and figures. So what we say that all these things that are happening, Boko Haram in Nigeria or Islamic whatever in Sudan, in Ethiopia, in Cameroon,
in Niger,
evil spirits are behind them. Who are the evil spirits? African leaders.
You cannot also make a generalistic statement like that.
You see, he said the heart of men
are desperately
wicked, and that you know,
define
that phrase,
life, yes.
That component is equally in the Quran somewhere. That is why, okay, what led to the emergence of Prophet Muhammad? May God, you know, I respect one of the greatest prophet on earth. Because evil was so prevalent those days in Arabia. The man had to come and say, oh, gentlemen, this evil is too much. This is the light. That one led to Mohammedanism and what have you. So because people have decided to be wicked and evil educated people, professors, we've seen professors who rig election, doctors who rig elections because they give them billions of naira. They don't care about their tomorrow, about their children. It's a sad situation.
If I may add this, because like when you were asking that question that have to do with religious crisis and all, community governance, I see it more from the set man.
The said man?
Yes.
Who is the said man?
Okay, and I will explain.
Okay.
You know, when an individual is elected to lead the country, no matter the religious group you belong to, the first thing you are supposed to do is not to use your strength to represent that religious group that you belong to. Because at this time, your position, your responsibility, it has superseded your religious group.
Inclination, yeah.
So you are supposed to stand for everybody, not one part of the religious group. It's a part of why crises are stirring up from all these aspects. Because you know that, oh, it's not only your religious group that voted for you, but everybody come out to vote for you. And the interest at that time is of the nation, not of religion. So you are supposed to stand. If there is any religion that is trying to create an atmosphere of crisis, even if it's the one that you belong to, you are supposed to shut them down, because your position and your responsibility at that time is not for that religious group, but is for the entire body of the nation. Okay. And that is one of the major problems that our leaders have.
Okay. All right, so Nowita Butsako, let's look at some of the effects now of this political crisis that you know, we're talking about on the continent of Africa. Because whether you like it or not, we must, you know, say the needful, because from the effects now we can really understand to what extent the crisis has gotten us to, so that we can begin to know how to prefer solutions. Now, from your own point of view, you are the experts here. What are the effects? Can we continue to withstand the effects as a continent?
The effect is glaring. The people are being impoverished. Poverty is the order of the day. People are insecure. There is no, the agricultural security is not there. Because when there are crises, people cannot go to farm. Those are we have in Nigeria. When there was, prevalence of Boko Haram, all this terrorism, people could not go to their farm to do their job. So it's poverty, insecurity, people are not happy, and what do we have? The country is going down.
The continent now.
The continent is going down. Okay, continent Africa is going down. Not apart from the huge resources we have in Africa. The continent is going down. Nothing positive is coming out for the country. So the effect is very glaring. People are not happy. People are hungry. People are hungry. Poverty is an issue. People cannot take care of themselves. People cannot have 2 square meals. In most African countries, most of the people they are living below $1 a day. In spite of the huge resources you have in those countries in Africa. So I want to believe that the country is under a curse. And we Africans have to fight to remove the curse. The defect is glaring. There's no peace. Even if there are manipulations from the Western world, because we have decided not to put ourselves in order, that's why they are succeeding in manipulating us. Talking of imperialism, new colonialism and all those stuff. They are there. So it's for African leaders to put their hearts together and give the people leadership. Genuine leadership. And they should not, parochialism, individualism should be discarded. The policy of me, myself, my family should be discarded. People should all rule in the interest of the majority, not in the interest of a minority. All over Africa, what do you see? You see a minority holding people to ransom. There are huge resources in those countries, but they cannot go around because of violent conflict. Masterminded by African evil spirits who call themselves leaders. So it is glaring. The country is going down. The African country is sitting on the bottomless pit of wealth. Wealth. Talk of Congo, for instance, the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the richest countries in Africa. Talk of Nigeria. But because of bad leadership, misgovernance, infrastructural deficit, you go to most of these countries, they are like glorified, glorified villages. Go to African countries' capitals. Glorified villages. Because the financial, resources to have, to develop those countries are being pocketed by evil African leaders. So it is a sad situation. And I want to call on African leaders to take the destiny of their country to their hands. We know it is difficult. Just as what is happening in our country. It's a very sad development.
Okay. All right.
We wanted change, but the forces or evil forces are trying to tell us the other way around. But God Almighty, divine forces, we see us too in Nigeria, divine forces will prevail. So the point we want to make that we should not sleep. We should continue to fight and demand for our rights. Okay. All over Africa.
All right. Now, so the program here is still African Discourse on Independent Television. Our special focus today is looking at the political crisis on the continent of Africa. Just as what we told you that most countries on the African continent are facing one crisis or the other. And everything boils down to political unsettlement in these countries. Well, we'll take a short pause now, and when we return, we're going to be looking at 1 or 2 countries where there seems to be some political respite. You talk about Rwanda, you talk about Kenya, and of course, you may also talk about South Africa. So we may look at these countries and see what they have done, that they seem to have been settled politically, even as we look at the crisis in other countries. Please stay tuned. You're welcome back. The program still Africa Discourse on Independent Television. Now, before we look at Rwanda, Kenya, and South Africa, let's still mention 1 or 2 effects of the crisis, political crisis in Africa. Now, Pastor Benson Ogira here. Now, the brain drain issue is one of the effects, whether we like it or not. A lot of Africans have left the continent to the Western world. Recently, sometime, the first week of April was a very bad period for migrants. We understand that 1 or 2 boats capsided and all that. the Mediterranean Sea. Lots of lives being lost on a daily basis. I want you to build it up from there as some of the effects that, that follows this political crisis that we're talking about.
First of all, I want to say this with all sincerity. One of the biggest effects that it has is that it promotes evil. You find out that, for instance, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, that when he grows up, he will not depart from it. Our leaders who are supposed to become an example for others to follow, for the oncoming generation to follow. So what they are bequeathing or what they are giving the upcoming generation is trying to tell them that with evil, you will make it. And you find that a lot of people are now feeling that, oh, as long as through evil means we can make it, what is the need for education? What is the need for this? What is the need for this? So they focus themselves to make sure that they go along. There was a day that I just decided to enter public transport. I was forced to do what I felt I would have not done. What happened? As we were driving down towards Adua, then one young boy, a very promising young boy, he was saying that, oh, that the people that are in position, that are in government, that are in governance now, that there is no problem. They can continue to do whatever they want to do. That when it comes to his own time, he said, if it's opportune to become a governor of a state, he said he will sell the state and drop the key. I was forced as a pastor. I was so angry that I looked at him face to face in the midst of everybody. I told him, I said, since that is your desire, that the grace and the anointing of God that is upon me, I've already shut it out of his life, that he will never have the opportunity to become a leader, even within his community. Talk less of becoming a leader in the public office.
All right, now.
So now, like what I want to say, you find out that the way our people are just leaving the country is a sign and expression of lost hope. And they feel that there is no hope here anymore.
You become desperate.
Let me quickly ask you this question, Pastor Gira here, because you see that recently,
yes,
religious leaders they are venturing into leadership position in Nigeria, not only in Nigeria, perhaps in other African countries. Take, for example, in Benue State, we understand that Reverend Father Hyacinth emerged as governor of Benue State. Then sometime in June this year, one or two countries are going to be having their presidential election. And we also understand that some of the candidates are big-time pastors. Now, how come, now that we are beginning to have religious leaders making incursions into politics in Africa, how come this political crisis seems to be still persisting? What is going on?
My beloved Brother Evans, I need to come out here to say this. For religious leaders to be involved in politics is a welcome development, whether anybody likes it or not. The reason is, if we keep saying the people that are playing the politics are bad, they are bad, they are bad, they are bad, you also come up that whatever grace you have to be able to also contribute to the success and the development of the country. Because if we just leave it in the hands of those that doesn't have conscience, you find out that the country is just going down.
So are you saying that religious leaders have conscience more than other people now?
To an extent, to an extent. I want to see it from two aspects. The first aspect is a welcome development that religious leaders should venture into it, should come up. But I feel that it will also be much more beneficial when you discover that Christians who are born again, who have the fear of God, even that are not pastors, should be more promoted, more giving assistance to come up than the religious leader. The reason I'm saying so is that because when God calls you and give you an assignment, there are some assignment that is so enormous, so big, that trying to combine politics to your spiritual duty, it might give a kind of a little disadvantage. You might not be able to carry on the responsibility because it's so enormous.
Okay. Now, Nowitai Butako, the Rwanda model is so admirable in the sense that when you are talking about political tranquility, political peace on the continent of Africa today, Rwanda is one country that people easily mention. We cannot forget the genocide, the Tutsi, the Hutsi, the genocide and all that. And it was a big blow, on that country. After that, respite came to Rwanda. So for us to have political peace in Africa, should we go the Rwandan way?
No. We don't have to, all African countries don't have to go that way before we have political respite in Africa.
Because the reason why I'm asking this question, now, we all know how the issue started in Rwanda.
You know what happened?
The Tutsi and the Hutsi and all that.
And the man, Paul Kagame, the man who is president now, went through it all. Kagame was one of the leaders. Kagame was with Yoweri Museveni in Uganda. He was a guerrilla fighter. He got to a pinnacle. You know, they share the same border. Rwanda and, Uganda. So the guy went that far. He saw the horror. He was a participant. Though it was his kin men that were being murdered in the massacre. He is a Tutsi.
Yeah, one of the minority.
So it was Hutu, it was one of their friends that was killed, and so the point is that the Paul Kagame was part of the process of what happened in Rwanda. So now he's president. The country went through that madness. And now he said, no, let me as president, let me correct what happened. So Paul Kagame is doing wonders because they've seen the other side of horror. They've seen the other side of bloodshed. It was a massacre that is unimaginable, that befell Rwanda.
Now, with what is
so the man is bringing all sorts of leadership acumen to play, to bring the country from the ashes of the massacre, of the genocide.
With what is going on in some parts of Africa, take for example in Nigeria, we may not say it's outright genocide, but we have some of these ethnic clashes, in the northern parts of the country over cattle rustlers and the herders and the farmers, fights and all that. Now, for some people, some of our leaders, they belong to these ethnic, groups and all that. I mean, they've also seen it. They've seen the bloodshed and all that. So why do you think they are not behaving like the Paul Kagame of Rwanda now?
I think maybe there's a special grace, to use the word our pastor used to use. Maybe there's a special grace on Rwanda, for instance.
That is not in other countries.
That has not gotten to other countries. Because, as I said, most of the thing we do, he said it, comes from the heart. It is not from anywhere. When Jesus Christ was being persecuted and people asked him the questions, he said the greatest sin comes from within, not from what to eat. So, if some African leader decided no longer to be African, to be evil spirit, is the fact of the matter. Because what prepares a man, evil or light?
Yes.
Darkness or light?
That's true.
So because the force of darkness is overtaking the force of light politically, that is the situation. So when you have people like Kagame who have gone through the horror and he's saying no, and we see have some people who went through certain process who are still dragging their country backward. You know something is wrong. It's evil spirit. So maybe they need redemption or salvation, spiritual salvation. So it has to do, to be on the serious side, it has to do with the personalities, the leaders who are in position. It's just a decision. Let me take a decision to be a good man. Let me not be influenced by forces around me. Let me not be influenced by my kinsmen. Because he was trying to talk about sectarianism.
Yeah.
That was trying to say when he was in that analogy.
Yeah,
no, we don't have sect, religious sect.
But don't you also think that at times some of these leaders may not be responsible for the crisis, as it were, but because of the opposition presence and all that. Take, for example, with what is happening in Senegal. I mean, just a while ago, we saw on the headline whereby the president was calling for ceasefire in Sudan. That's a country that today there's opposition, crisis and all that. So the government in power may not be responsible for the crisis, but the opposition factor. So let's look at that.
Now, who is foiling the opposition in Sudan? It's my area. The guy who was former president, something like Bashar, something. He was the one who was driven out of presidential, They now regroup with other rebels. He wants to seize power again. The man wants to come back to power. He has stolen so much while he was in government, and he had the resources to finance those rebels. That's why they are in Khartoum. That's why Khartoum is boiling. So is it an ordinary human being that will finance rebel groups?
Yeah, that's perhaps just one story. But let's look at Senegal. The opposition guy in Senegal, he has also not, I think it is the first time that he wants to come into government and all that. So why is he, he's the one responsible for majority of the political crisis in Senegal?
Because he wants to be president. He wants to come and rule. So what do you expect him to do? He has to do what is called management of violence. He has to employ the rudiment of managing violence.
What really fuels these opposition tendencies that we have in governance in Africa? What do you think fuels it?
Is relevance. They want to be relevant. And that's why we say, even in Nigeria, for instance, we want an opposition that be relevant. They're able to challenge the ills in the society. They want to tell the people to know what the incumbent administration is doing that is not doing right. That's what we call progressive opposition in governance. So when in any sane democratic system, there must be opposition party. Because if there's no opposition, then you have a dictatorship, or malevolent dictatorship that doesn't reckon with the people. There must be opposition. Responsible, progressive opposition. But unfortunately, we have some opposition characters that have come to power. They become another thing. What kind of side cases? Is it not, for instance, in Uganda, Yoweri Museveni? He was once in the jungle. He was once in the bushes. He was once saying what will happen was now in government. He wants to be a life president. So he had decided not to toe the path of prosperity. Okay. He had decided to toe the path of retrogressivism. Doesn't want this country to move forward.
Yeah.
How many years he has been in power? Yoweri Museveni. There are a lot we can start calling names. Is it in Pobiya? That man that's almost dropping dead in Pobiya in Cameroon? Is it Pobiya we want to say? They don't decided not to just be irresponsible.
Let's be careful.
No. Now, when you are president, you are not responsible to your people. What do we call that? What is the opposite of responsibility? Irresponsibility of the highest level.
Pastor Gary,
you don't care about the people.
Let's begin to talk about the solutions now. Okay, because we both prefer solutions, even on this program. Now, for most people, they see it's more of internal issue that demands internal solutions. Yes. I mean, some of the external attempts, United Nations and all that, they've really not helped situations. Take, for example, with what has been happening in DRC, that's Democratic Republic of Congo, with the introduction of the M23 and all that, and offshoots of the United Nations and all that.
Problems.
They've really not helped situations as it were. Yes. So for most people, they begin to call on African leaders. Let us look inward. Let's look at the issues one more time. Let us find solutions to this political crisis. So if we have to do that now, where do you think African nations and African leaders can really start from?
Okay. The first thing I want to say is that with the issues that is prevalent in Africa, one of the major start points to create solution is that one, we should be able to know that this is our country.
Our continent.
If we take it that this is our home,
go on.
If we take it that this is our home, you find out that you want to do everything, put every machinery in place to make sure that your home is settled. That is number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you should also be able to know that whatever sacrifice you want to pay to create solution to political crisis in the continent is that you are trying to build the future of your own children. Because where there is no good country, where there is no good continent in Africa, so certainly the unborn children will also suffer those evil seeds. So the time has come for our leaders to actually come together and say, okay, as far as is here now, so let's put everything together. One, to see the nation not just for you, but for everybody, for the unborn children, so that we'll be able to build that nation even for oncoming generation, even generation yet unborn. The another third thing that I want to also look at is this issue of when an individual emerges as a leader, you try to take the interest of the political party more than other things is very, very wrong. So what we are supposed to do is that, yes, it's true that this political party is through the platform that you emerge as a leader. But if there are good people with good idea, with sound knowledge that can actually create good things that will build the nation, even if they are in another political party,
opposition party.
Yes, you should be able to at least acknowledge it, bring them to the government, and see the way that everybody will work together to build a good nation.
Okay. All right. So, Nwita Ibutako, at the introduction, when we're trying to look at what is responsible for the crisis, you largely and majorly talked on poverty.
Yeah, poverty.
And if we are to follow that line, we may begin to suggest that political solutions may be the first. But you will recall that there is no political solutions that can really thrive when we have political crisis. In other words, don't you think that political solutions is more... in other words, there's no political solutions that can thrive where we have economic problems. Now, don't you think political solutions supersedes every other solutions that we may want to perform?
I think the first thing that should be done by African countries, by African people, is to ensure that the electoral system is sanitized. Because it is through the electoral process there are a lot of manipulations. Because if you don't get it right, because we say there is democracy all over Africa, that so to say, in most countries is democracy. But may and you know that it's autocracy, so to say, because the way they maneuver themselves through the electoral process. You know, Nigerians will clap for ourselves. For instance, Nigeria is in Africa. Clap for ourselves in the sense that we have been at the forefront of saying sanitize the electoral process, which led to what we have with the electoral act. But during the last presidential election, we saw another abracadabra, so to say. We saw another magic. Political magic came to play. But the struggle is on. So the message I'm passing to African people, passing to the people all over there, let's go into fight. Let's sanitize the electoral process. Let's go into fight to make sure the judiciary work.
Yeah, when you say we begin to fight now, I think I was going to explain that to the extent that we should begin to
we demand
peaceful, so
peaceful.
The continent.
When I say fight, I'm not meaning civil war.
Yeah, we
should demand. You know, I remember the civil society, so we should be able to demand. You know,
for justice,
advocacy for we sanitize the electoral process, because once that one is sanitized, I think we have some respite. Even there are some evil forces, wicked, malicious forces who want to trample on the whatever that be put in place. But we will not allow them to have the last day. So I'm calling on African leaders, African people going to fight. When I say fight, advocate, struggle, protest, peaceful protest, massive. Let the electoral process, let the electoral laws, let them work. Because of this thing, they are written in the books. Let's promulgatize this process. So we should fight, we should struggle, we should advocate for sanitation of the electoral process. That's the first thing. Because it's through the electoral process that generates
good governance.
The leaders.
Yeah.
Because if the electoral process can take care of bad leaders, they will not appear now.
That's true.
It's a very simple magic.
Now, what about economic solutions now?
It is when you have responsible leaders, visionary, missionary leaders, is when you have to the electoral process that you have a good economy. When you have a leader that is being sectarian, as I'm trying to say,
yes,
it's my religion, it's my tribe, it's my family, it's my court member. Neglecting the majority of the people, they cannot solve an economic crisis. Is a will, a political will that can take care of economic management.
Okay.
That can put the right people in position, put the best brains, put the best mechanism that will give us political, electoral, social respite. So when you have bad leaders, when you have evil spirits in authority, they will not give us what we want. We want people with good spirits that will give Africa. Okay, how do you call a pobia in Cameroon? That is a classic example of an evil spirit.
Well, that will be your explanation.
It's the fact of the matter.
Yeah,
you either have light or darkness.
Yes.
So it's where if you have four. Okay.
All right, our time is up now, gentlemen. I really want to say a very big thank you for coming on the show today, Africa Discourse. Now, it will amaze you to know that out of the 55 countries of the continent of Africa, about 35, of them are having political issues or the other. It's so very, very worrisome. It's either, secessionist tendency, secessionist movement, or some form of religious movement here and there, religious crisis here and there. All these countries, at war, as it were, at crisis, as it were. So it's urgent attention is needed so that we can bring the continent back to peace. I really want to say thank you, and to Pastor Blessing Nigeria for your very religious
spiritual dimension
into the issue on the show today. And also to Syria author, our conflict resolution expert.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
And to you for watching the program, thank you so much. Until same time next week, my name is Evan Sunokoge. Goodbye and God bless you.